So let's discuss Sutra 6. प्रमाण विपर्यय विकल्प निद्रा स्मृतयः प्रमाण विपर्यय विकल्प निद्रा स्मृतयः. So this means word by word praman is the first modulation. The first modulation is praman, which means looking for proof. Looking for proof. Viparyaya means false knowledge. And vikalpa means anything that is non-existent, like the doubts and the fears. Nidra means sleep, and smritaya means memory. So these are the 5 modulations of the mind. So the first modulation is that the mind keeps on looking for proof. It keeps on, looking for proof, bouncing here and there. Whenever it gets a source of information, the mind keeps on looking for proof that whether it is right or wrong, whether the knowledge that I am, going to believe or I am receiving is the correct source of information. So this is the first modulation of the mind. The second modulation is viparyaya, analyzing, or sometimes it is, over analyzing that, and then, it could even be, wrong knowledge, viparyaya. But it is false knowledge. Overall, it is false knowledge. So I will explain to you that why viparyaya means false knowledge here. So when the mind starts analyzing anything, so let's take example of any event that has happened with you, and then the modulation of the mind is thinking of that past event. So what is happening here is that you believe that something wrong has happened to you because someone said something to you or someone did something to you, and then you start, or we start judging that person, that okay, so and so did that to me because he is bad or she is bad. And we judge, and when we judge a person, we do not, go beyond that, beyond the reason that why that person behaved in such a manner. So but the reality is, if we go beyond the event, we might find out that it was not a good day for him either. And so in just a moment, he or she blurted out, and he might not even mean that, but we just keep on thinking that okay, this has happened because he's bad. And somewhere from within, our consciousness will tell us that, oh, let it be, let it go. True knowledge, it comes. It's not that it doesn't comes from within our heart, but it comes, and it reminds us it's meaningless, to keep on thinking about that, about what the person has said. But the mind sticks to the false knowledge. That is viparya over here. So somewhere you were prompted that he or she didn't mean that to happen, or it just happened, and it was just that moment that it happened, but the mind clings on to the false knowledge. So that is viparya. So the another example is that sometimes, when we start a new relationship, like when we start a new friendship, and then what happens, it goes good and good and good, but one day something happens, because it could be even that, that you yourself are feeling, are having a complex which could be superior or inferior. So let's say you think that you are not as smart as the other person whom you are friends with. So here, when that person does something, you start feeling that, oh, he thinks that he is very superior. But what is the false knowledge here? The false knowledge here is that you judge a person that he is very superior. First of all, that is false knowledge, because you are sourcing it, like, because you are thinking that I am inferior. The second thing is that knowing, or the second thing is false knowledge about yourself, that you are inferior. That is also false knowledge, making concepts about yourself, right? Because we discussed, right, that we discussed in the first sutras that these are the layers of consciousness. How you feel about yourself is your ego, but that's not pure, or that's not true knowledge. The true knowledge is that you are self, and you are pure, you are whole. And there is you don't need to tell yourself that you are inferior or superior, because you just exist. And it's a the existence in itself is very very whole. So that is in itself a false knowledge. And when you go with that false knowledge and interact with the person, you might think that the other person is feeling very superior of themselves, and you think that they are very arrogant. So based on the false knowledge, another false knowledge, and then it and the whole relationship, bounces off. And then we don't see that person, we start to avoid that person, or we maybe throw sarcasm and tantrums, and then the other person might think, what happened, like I didn't do anything. So you must have even felt this with yourself. You must be thinking that what happened, I didn't do anything, but this has happened. So this is viparyaya, when mind goes on, goes in circles and in circles, and starts creating false knowledge on top of the other. And similar things happen when the mind goes in the past and looks at the old story and then builds more on that. So that is also a very funny thing, that mind does that. So you are angry in the past because someone said something to you, and you don't go beyond that event, and then the mind starts thinking, oh, this happened because he was this, and then it keeps building more judgments on the past event, about the person or the situation, so whatsoever. So that is called viparyaya. The third modulation, the vritti of the mind, is vikalpa. What is vikalp? Vikalp is like it doesn't exist at all. This modulation of the mind, it is just in the thoughts, it doesn't exist. So it could be a fear or a phobia or paranoia, or even a doubt about yourself, like something is going to happen in the future, and you think, will I be able to do it? So that's the first doubt that you create, and then on top of that the mind starts creating more doubts, um, more disbelief, and then fear, and so many other things start happening in the mind. It drowns into that. The modulation of that mind, it keeps on coming and going and coming and going. And but you know what it is, it is just a stream of thoughts. If you understand what is vikalpa, it is just a stream of thoughts which have a sound, because thoughts are made of words, and you are thinking in terms of words and images. So what is happening, that those words have sounds, but those sounds have no value. Or let's say that those images, they have no value. So how can this knowledge help you today? This knowledge can help you today, that when today or in future your mind is under these modulations, or maybe you're feeling a lot of fear or self doubt, then you can tell, oh, this is one of the modulations of my mind, right? This is one of the modulations of my mind, but they do not exist. They are just thoughts made up of the words, and these words have no sounds, so they do not exist. The moment you become aware that it's a modulation, it doesn't exist, it has no value, so then you understand, oh, once the awareness is there, everything dissolves. Like you will see all those thoughts crumbling and falling down right in front of you. So awareness is the key here. So you don't have to fight the thought, you don't have to, like, in normally what people do is, when they are in fear, they will try to stop the thought, they will try to resist the thought, they will try to persist it, and the more you persist, the more it will keep coming back, right? So the thing over here is to do is realize, oh, this is one of the modulations, and it will come and go by its own. Because mind is what? Mind is like water, it is flexible, it is ever changing. The feelings keep on changing, the emotions keeps on changing. Do you feel like, have you noticed, like, when you go, like, in one of the sutras we said vritti sarupya mitra, in one of the sutras we said vritti sarupyam itratra. So on the other occasions, what is happening? Naturally, wherever you are, the mind starts taking that form, the consciousness starts taking that form. So even if you would apply the previous sutra, and if you're feeling fearful, you can tell yourself that anyways this will fall off, because I am going to do some other activity, I am going to go out, I am going to do this or that, and this will fall off by its own time. So the best thing is to not resist any viparyaya when the mind is under the modulations of viparya, these tendencies, and to recognize that the mind is under this modulation, which is viparyaya. And because the mind is like water, the third thing you can do is that understand that mind is ever changing. Your consciousness it's ever flowing, it's changing, and it it will not, and it doesn't need to fix it, because mind wants to fix it, but that's just the nature of the mind. And that is there so that you can do a task, you can focus on something and get something done, but it's not there to, to make you suffer. So when this knowledge comes into picture, then what will happen is you will start releasing what you don't need to hold, and you will start holding what you need to hold. What we need to hold is the truth. So let's go to this fourth moderation, which is nidra. What is nidra? Nidra is sleep. So the mind is sleeping, and what are we doing while we are sleeping? Either we are in deep sleep or we are dreaming. So that is one the other modulation of the mind. So when the mind is not, when we are awake, so we are in these three modulations, or we are sleeping or dreaming. That is nidra. And smritiyaya is memory. So if not these four, then the mind is going into a modulation which is coming from the memory. So something from the memory comes and pops up, and then your mind goes on engaging with that memory. So these are the 5 modulations of the mind. See you in the next sutra. Namaste.